international business, and they actually predominantly use agents. So the question was how I had my initial sample made, and also how I chose the factory. So the initial sample was basically, I looked at factories that were producing items similar to what I was producing. So I was looking at factories that sold fishing stools, and when I was on Alibaba, I was searching factories that produce fishing stools, but I was also looking for the gold suppliers, the accredited suppliers. So I was making sure that these were really good factories, because actually if I looked just purely at, there would have been thousands that were producing fishing stools. So I found good factories. I got rough posts, not even saying I wanted a toilet, just saying I'd like a fishing stool made with a hole in, because I was trying to, protect my idea. So can you do this? And I'll need a certain weight bearing, I'll need a certain size, I'll need this, giving them as much information as possible so they could give me a guide price. And I probably did that to about 20 factories. And over that process, what I was doing, I was working out which factories were responding to me, which factories were giving me a good price, which factories were really proactively coming back to me going, yes, we can do this. In terms of, the question was, how do I get around kind of currency fluctuations and dealing internationally on different currencies? It's always a bit of a risk, and when I'm buying in, obviously I keep an eye on when I'm buying my products. So you always with China, you buy in US dollars. So I'm keeping an eye on what the kind of exchange rate is. Rather than using the bank, I tend to use an FX company, and I get them to quote on what I'm doing, so I know that I'm getting the best deal. Yeah, that's a really, really good question, which is basically that if you're producing something in China, then the minimum order quantities are really high. And predominantly when you place an order of a product, you won't have a buyer for it. No buyer really out there is going to tell you that they want a few thousand or something without seeing a product. Even really, potentially, they might do it on a sample, but I think you'd be really, really lucky, because most buyers and retailers will want to see you selling it yourself and want you to prove it yourself. The answer, probably, unfortunately, is that it's a bit of a just, you have to go for it and take a risk. And if you're confident with your idea, then you just have to go for it. There are, there's websites like AliExpress and things that will do smaller quantities. But if you're speccing your own product and they're making it for you, there is no getting around it. They will want a minimum order quantity, and that minimum order quantity will probably be depending on the price, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, something like that. The question was, when I sell X Works from a factory internationally, how do I trust that the factory won't cut me out of it? Obviously, there's an element of the fact that I've got intellectual property at stake. The fact is you need to have the cash to prosecute, and you need to go through a long process. So that's never, a set deal. But the other thing also is too, that for a factory to go directly, it needs to have the distributors and the contacts. And actually what I've really, really tried to do is make sure that the people I'm working with, the distributors and the retailers, actually, we have a relationship. They're not just buying off me. They know what I'm buying for. They know what my margin is. They know that I'm not, ripping them off or anything. And I add value to the business. I help create the brand. We do a lot of work behind what we're doing. And as I say, we're pulling on new products. So hopefully the relationships are there so that doesn't happen. It's always a risk, but unfortunately there's not really any way that you can protect it from not happening if you want to run a profitable business. Confidentiality agreements and kind of how difficult it is with the legal process and things to do with them. I think the confidentiality agreements that I had signed were a fairly standard one. They were actually given to me by the product design agency, who give a bit of advice afterwards about where to go. But they were a fairly standard one, and I was pretty much told that really they probably wouldn't stand up much in Chinese law. So their value probably was minimal in terms of them really, really being there, and the fact that, did I have any money to ever prosecute if they told anyone? No. I think the question was, if you're buying from China, a lot of people, if you've specced it, how do you definitely know that your product's going to come out exactly how you ordered it? And that's a really good point, and especially if you've got 3,000, because 100 of those 3,000 might come out 90% how you looked at it, and then the rest are only 80%, and so actually 5% look nothing like it, because they're damaged for various reasons. There are ways that you can protect yourself. There's certain agencies and things out there that will do those checks before they leave, and you pay them a percentage of the order, so there's things like letters of credit, which is something set up by the bank, which means that actually you release the money to the factory, but you're not actually paying it in full until you actually see it at the docks in this country. Okay, the two questions were, I'll tackle the first one first, which was what was the payment terms. I'd say that's probably pretty standard across most of the factories I've dealt with out there, which is 30% on order and 70% basically when the stock's done and it's delivered to port. I always buy things FOB, which basically means the factory produced them and then I have a shipping agent who ships them over for me. And those are pretty standard ones, unless you're using a letter of credit or something where you release the money and do it over in this country. And when it lands on the shore, and that's something you need to manage cash flow, when it lands in the store at the port, you need to pay VAT on it. Straight away you need to pay 20% of what you paid, you need to pay in VAT. So protecting yourself with a product design agency. Yeah, if you have an idea and you're submitting it to a product design agency, there's a good point, there are some quite ruthless companies out there that will tell you they'll give you a load of money and you know, put your idea on the market. Make sure you're using a reputable company that's got case studies and references. The company I use is Innovate Product Design, which is one of the larger ones. Thank you all